This is a continued discussion from the previous episode of a Fresh Perspective podcast, catering to the latest in ingredient trends, consumer insights, and food news. Brought to you by Corbion.
Moving on to kind of our second topic of the day, which is transparency and shelf life. I think transparency to your consumer has to be a really high priority, right? We want to know, and we're no longer like in the 70s when it was like, eat your hot dog. We don't know what's in it. We don't care because it's delicious. We care now, right? We want to look at clean labels. We want to look at sustainability. So when we talk about transparency and shelf life, how important is it, do you think, for a business to be transparent?
Well, I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. We went through a time in our lives where we just sold food and people didn't really question it. And that was that. But at the same time, I will say, so if you think about the old frozen TV dinner, right? Till this day, when you ask some of your 70 on up consumers and you ask them about frozen food, they're like, all this salt, the processed, the TV dinners, that we'll never get rid of that name among those age shoppers. Right. But then you ask about millennials and they're like, oh no, frozen is fresh, it's nutritious, it's wonderful. And so the whole thing is absolutely, it comes down to how we communicate with shoppers. And the more clear we can be, the better. I always say transparency is the currency of trust. And the thing with currency is that you need to protect it, right? You don't want the currency to be meaningless. And we want to make sure that people still believe in the trust with everything that we say, with everything that we do. And so I think we really have to figure out what matters to consumers, which is really where our study, Life Through the Lens of Bakery, comes in. But also, how do you talk a consumer in a way that is clear to them? And oftentimes in bakery and beyond, we have this tendency to come up with all these production claims that mean everything to us, but mean nothing to consumers.
Nothing to the consumer. Yep, absolutely. So you talk about the currency of trust, and absolutely right. That's how you brand shop. It's like, oh, I trust this brand. I know that this brand is going to deliver exactly what I always get from this brand, right?
Yeah.
So have you noticed any distrust when it comes to like somebody saying natural? Oh, it's natural. I don't believe that. Or it's organic, and I don't believe that. A good deal of time we are lied to as consumers, and we have been in the past. So do we see that, and how do we kind of combat it?
We do see a little bit of that, especially when I do consumer focus groups. We often hear that people like the transparency of certain labels and certain callouts, because at the end of the day, how much time do we have to research every single thing on a package label, right? So if there are these little callouts, then that makes life a little bit easier. But at the same time, there's a lot of consumers who feel that, well, maybe there's some marketing callouts rather than real. So we do see great appreciation for third-party certifications in some of those areas. And we also just see a quest for having some consistency across the different categories that they shop. But more than anything, I think one of the biggest findings of the study was that especially younger shoppers are willing to reward brands and retailers that bring a lot of better for you type of items, whether that's better for the planet, better for the animal, better for the health, better for everything. But they're not seeing a lot of evidence. And realistically, I think every company that exhibited or was at IBIE has initiatives in better for or sustainability in the wider sense. But apparently we are not very good about beating our own drum. And I think in a way that is hard, right? Because we feel like we're doing good. We don't want to be facetious or
we don't want to rock the boat or right.
Right. We don't want to do it because we believe a shopper might now buy us. But at the same time, you know what? If it is really important to a shopper and we are doing it, then maybe we should be a little bit more overt about it because it matters, especially to those younger generations. So it comes down to that believable, authentic label that we're seeing on packages.
So how can a company show, like, I mean, this is kind of a general question, so I get it, but how can a company show that they're dedicated to all the things that we're talking about, dedicated to the things in the study, the transparency, being honest, being open, and really creating that currency of trust between the consumer and the, help me out.
Help me out. All right, here I go. Ready?
The consumer.
Somebody once said to me,
my brain stopped working. So,
I completely get it. Difficult, Monday afternoon, what can we say? But here's my answer to that one.
Okay,
I think,
thank you.
Somebody once gave a really, really fun example, and he was so right. He said, as a company or as a brand, as a marketer, you feel like you've been saying the same thing again and again. Like, I need to figure out a different way to say it. Yes. He said, but really marketing is like a marching band, where every block of the city, it is a new audience. So you might feel like you've played this song a million times, but every single time it is a new audience. And it is so true. We're all inundated with media. And so I think it's really important to be very consistent, to be very clear, and more than anything, speak in the language of the consumer and go wide. What the study found is there is not one particular area where consumers are looking for this kind of information. They want to see it on pack. They want to see it on the shelf. They want to see it on their retailer website, the brand website. And so we all know at the end of the day, we control so much. We only have so much real estate on that package. But really, by being consistent, by having the information out there, for the naysayers, for the exposés that you mentioned earlier, I think that is our best way to not only maintain the trust, but build the trust.
So just keep putting the message out there, stay the course, right?
Yeah. And I think also work with partners you trust, right? If I even look at, let's say animal welfare is probably an easy topic, right? If you look at some of the countries in Europe that are very big on animal welfare, you always see that we partner with farms we know and trust, right? So as people are creating baked good items, work with ingredient companies and work with companies that they've checked out, that you trust, that you know are as much of a believer as in trust and in the currency of trust as you are. I think that's really important as well.
Absolutely. And those people are in my online forums, by the way, the ones that I read. So they're the ones that actually go to the farm and say, I have been here. I know they're not using pesticides. And
that's right.
So, I mean, people talk. Okay. So during COVID, people kind of stopped doing special occasions, right? I mean, in our house, they were kind of sad. We got like 3, cupcakes and 1 candle. And are they back? Are people having parties? Are they buying baked goods for these things?
They absolutely are. There's a small part of the population, 10-15%, and it's very age related, that are still not back to pre-pandemic celebrations. But by and large, the population of the United States is absolutely back to special occasions. And in fact, what we're seeing is that people are actually making them a little bit extra special after all these years of going without. So I do think there's still a couple of little differences. Like, for instance, the school that my kids go through, you used to be able to bring in that 24 pack of cupcakes. That's still not allowed. You have to have them individually wrapped. So that's just one of these things where I think baked good companies still have to pay a little bit of attention to what is happening, what is the size of the parties. But we had seen a shift to those small 6 cupcake packet sizes, as you say, right? Just enough for the immediate household. And we're absolutely seeing the cakes and the candles and everything right back. So in terms of special celebrations, but also, of course, the cookouts, we still see a lot of grilling happening over the summer. That, of course, goes hand in hand with all the buns and all the other fun things that go with the grill out cookout. So
yes,
absolutely. It's really everyday demand continues to be very strong because 78% of meals are still sitting at home, and bakery, of course, plays in every single meal occasion, snacks, etc.
Right.
But that special occasion is absolutely back.
I have to say, for me, when I go shopping, like I actually go push the cart through the store and not order, which I still do order quite a bit. There's something a little decadent about just perusing the bakery. I mean, I was a girl that skipped the bakery because it was like a bunch of calories and whatever. But now I go through and I'm like, oh, this Danish, we might have to do this for breakfast. Or
I agree.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just it feels different than it used to.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier, I think the old definition of health was all about nutrition, right? And so people sort of had departments that were in and departments that were out. But the definition of right, but the definition of health has really evolved, right? It's now emotional well-being as well as actual physical health. And so we very much realize that you need a little treat after a hectic, crazy weekend like the one you just had, or and so that's where perusing the bakery aisle is or the baked area is just great. And I love too that they are more integrating some of those pre-baked items into the in-store bakery, so that that shelf life might be a little bit better than an item that was baked and was meant to be consumed in the next day or two. So I think, I've always loved bakery. I grew up across the street from one, and every morning I woke up to the smell of fresh bread. So I am a bakery girl all the way.
It does smell amazing, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Well, now I would like to go upstairs and get my sourdough bread and have some toast and butters, like literally my favorite thing in the world.
There you go.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, because when we talk about special occasions, are we talking about like home occasions, or are people actually going to buy things and taking them places? Are they ordering wedding cakes again? Like I know for a while Costco didn't do cakes because of you couldn't go to the store to pick it up and fill out your order form. But I was there yesterday and they had them on the shelf again, and I was like, oh, they're back. Right. Like what else is back? What else? What other ways can we indulge ourselves?
Well, I think it's back all the way. And this is really where the study looking at retail food service, making yourself is so interesting, because what we are seeing in restaurants, people still want to eat out, right? We all get a little tired of cooking at home. But at the same time, of course, that pressure coming from inflation means that, well, maybe we don't eat out as often, as well as maybe we're changing what we're ordering. So we see more focus on that main meal, a little bit less focus on the appetizers, on the dessert. So depending on where you sit in the bakery side of the business, because of course it spans everything from buns and wraps to those wonderful desserts. But at the same time, that means that people might do some takeout or delivery of the main entree from a restaurant and then go to a retail bakery or perhaps bake some wonderful desserts themselves. So we're absolutely seeing a little bit of everything. And then as to where our special occasions happening, we do still see a little bit more of a home-centric focus. If you think about like a Mother's Day, that used to be the biggest day for eating out. Well, we figured out that we can spoil mom at home as well. Right. Valentine's Day, same thing, right? So we see a lot of focus still in retail on those types of days, but absolutely, bakery has massive permissibility in everyday life, in special occasions, and I am convinced that despite inflation, we're going to see a very strong year to come.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and I hope we see you again soon.
Oh, absolutely. Same here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, that's the end. Till next time, preserve what matters.
Thank you for listening to a Fresh Perspective podcast, brought to you by Corbion. Please like, subscribe, and follow us on thebakerstake.com and thecorbioncut.com. Until next time, preserve what matters.